This story happened in the spring of 2020 when I was starting my first year of high school. I was around 15 years old then. During that time, everyone was talking about these strange clown sightings happening everywhere. It was like a trend that wouldn't stop. I didn't think much of it, just figured it was people playing pranks. One day, on March 25, 2020, I was in my last class of the day, which was history. We had finished learning about the Titanic and were getting ready to go home. I asked my teacher if I could go to the bathroom, and she gave me permission. But the bathroom near our class was closed for cleaning, so I had to walk to the other side of the building to use a different one. As I walked down the hallway, I got a big surprise. At the end of the hall, there was someone dressed like a clown. I thought it was probably just a joke, but it still made me feel really scared. I nodded at the clown as I walked past, trying not to think about it too much. Then, when I went into the restroom and started doing my business, the loudspeaker came on and said we had to stay in lockdown. My stomach felt really heavy because I realized it must be because of the clown. I hurried to finish up, and just as I was about to leave the stall, I saw the clown's face looking in at me from above. I screamed and ran out of there as fast as I could. I hurried to my teacher's room, asking her to let me in, but she couldn't. She said it was too risky. Instead, she told me to find a safe place to hide. I found an unlocked electrical room and went inside. The machines made a humming sound, which comforted me a bit. Then, I heard footsteps and people shouting outside. The police had come. I looked through a vent in the door and saw them all around. It was a relief to see them, but I didn't want to come out too soon and startle them. For a long time, I watched as the police took two clowns away in handcuffs. One of them was someone I recognized from earlier. Turns out, they were students from our school who had caused trouble before and got suspended. They said they were just having fun and didn't mean any harm, but the police didn't believe them. They got arrested right away. I finally came out of hiding and told the authorities what happened. They called my parents, and we went to the main office to sort everything out. The two boys were kicked out of school, and I heard they went to jail because they were 18. Because of what happened, my parents decided to send me to another school. I was scared of clowns for a long time afterward. It took a while for everyone to forget about the clown stuff, but thankfully, nothing like that ever happened again. When we thought everything was finished, people started talking about a secret group linked to the clown sightings. They said there was a hidden bunch of pranksters working together to make these events happen for a bad reason. Some even said they saw strange people hanging around the school on the day it was locked down, talking quietly to the clowns and telling them what to do. At first, it seemed unbelievable, but as more stories came out, it became harder to ignore. These rumors spread quickly, making everyone at school feel paranoid and suspicious. Some thought it was all made up, while others were sure they'd seen proof of something darker going on. The police tried to find out what was going on, but they didn't find any solid proof to back up the rumors. It felt like the whole situation disappeared suddenly, making everyone wonder if they had just imagined it. In the end, nobody could figure out what really happened. People kept guessing and feeling unsure. But one thing was clear: the sightings of clowns had scared our school, showing us that unexpected things can be the most frightening. A long time ago, when I was in high school, there was this one day that was much busier than I thought it would be. It started after lunch, like any other school day. After a short lunch break of about 25 minutes, it was time for study hall. Our school had a routine class, then lunch, then another class, and finally study hall. But because I had gym class that period, usually gym class was easy for me. Our teacher was relaxed, and study hall with him wasn't too bad. But sometimes, when our usual classroom was occupied, we'd have study hall in the gym instead. It was a bit strange, doing homework on the bleachers or gym floor instead of sitting at a desk. So after finishing my lunch quickly, I walked back to class. Our classroom was far away, so it took some time to get there. I talked with my friends along the way to pass the time until the bell rang. My gym teacher wasn't strict, so I didn't hurry. When I got to our classroom, something seemed strange. The door was shut, which was unusual. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I looked through the window and saw that the lights were off inside. Then I realized we must be having class in the gym today. How did I not know that? I felt stupid for not paying attention. I turned around and started walking back to the gym. Then, I heard an announcement over the school speakers saying it was a lockdown, not a practice. They told us to stay in our classrooms and not go into the halls. I got scared. I was halfway to the gym when I remembered we were supposed to be in class. I hurried back, almost running. But when I got to the classroom, the doors were locked. I started to panic because I didn't know where to go. Suddenly, I heard a loud bang, like a locker slamming shut. I froze, my heart racing. I didn't know what was happening. I heard footsteps coming closer. Quickly, I ran to a nearby staircase and went down. Then I rushed through a hallway, looking for a place to hide. I saw a classroom and knocked on the door, hoping someone would let me in. But nobody answered. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I felt really scared as the footsteps got closer. Just when I was about to lose hope, the door suddenly opened. The teacher let me in and locked the door behind me. The room was dark, but I could see some students huddled in the back. We were all quiet, hardly even breathing, while someone pounded on the door from outside. I felt scared and nervous, waiting for the lockdown to finish. It seemed like forever before we heard the news. The lockdown was over. But the tension didn't go away. I got called to the principal's office to talk about what happened. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Why were we locked down? And who was banging on the door? The principal asked me lots of questions, but I didn't have many answers. They just said there was a security problem, and they were looking into it. As I walked out of the principal's office, I felt really worried. Something didn't seem right. And then, things got even weirder when I heard two teachers talking quietly. They were talking about a break-in at the school office. Someone had stolen a lot of important files and secret stuff. I felt really scared when I understood what must have happened. The lockdown wasn't just a practice or for safety. They were hiding something serious happening in the school, and they didn't want anyone to know. When I understood what really happened, I realized how lucky I was to find shelter in that dark classroom. Who knows what might have happened if I hadn't? Thinking back, that day made me realize something important. Showed me that danger can be anywhere, even in unexpected places. But it also taught me to pay attention and trust my gut feelings. As I left the school that day, I promised myself something. I wouldn't ignore my safety anymore. I would always be careful and ready to protect myself if danger showed up again. I still remember that day at Maplewood High School very clearly, as if it happened just yesterday. It was a cold afternoon during the school year. Our school, which was in a tough neighborhood, often had fire drills and lockdown drills. I was sitting in Mrs. Thompson's math class, trying to pay attention to what she was teaching, when all of a sudden we heard loud shouting from outside. It was really noisy and confusing, and it made Mrs. Thompson stop talking in the middle of her sentence. She walked over to the window and looked out with a worried expression on her face. Shouting stopped as soon as she opened the window a little bit. Then, the principal's voice came through the loudspeaker, saying we had to stay in our classrooms. Mrs. Thompson quickly closed the door and turned off the lights. We knew what to do, gather in the corner and be quiet. But this time felt scarier. We heard shouts in the hallway, not like usual student noise, but from an adult, and they sounded angry. I got scared because I knew something was really wrong. Our school didn't have security guards because it didn't have much money. We had to wait for the police to come. Shouting outside got louder, and we heard banging on the door of the classroom next to ours. The kids in there were getting scared too. The loud banging noise stopped, and then we heard it right outside our door. Some of my classmates started crying, and others screamed. I felt really scared and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, the man outside broke the small window with his elbow, and pieces of glass flew everywhere. I couldn't believe what was happening. Our teacher, Mrs. Thompson, acted quickly. She grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed the man's arm when he reached through the broken window. The man yelled in pain, but he didn't stop. He kept banging on the door even harder. I could see tears in Mrs. Thompson's eyes as she tried to keep the door closed. Just when we thought things couldn't get worse, we heard a loud crash from the other side of the classroom. We all looked and saw the back wall shake, like something heavy hit it. Our teacher, Mrs. Thompson, looked really surprised and ran to check it out. As she got closer, we saw a small hole in the wall that looked like a tunnel. We had never seen it before. Then we got really scared when a man came out of the tunnel. He looked messy and had wild eyes, holding something metal. He had been hiding in our school the whole time, using secret tunnels to sneak around. Everyone got scared in the classroom when another person came towards us. Mrs. Thompson acted fast, pushing us towards the door and telling us to run. We quickly ran out of the classroom and down the hall to the closest exit. Outside, we saw police cars arriving at the school with their sirens on. We waved at them and explained what happened inside. The police went into the building with their guns out to catch the intruders. It was really scary, but luckily, nobody got seriously hurt. As we were waiting outside for the police to give us the okay, I felt really shocked. I never thought something like this could happen at our school, but it made me realize that danger can be anywhere, even where we least expect it. It's important to always be ready for surprises like this. Looking at my classmates all scared and together, I felt thankful that we were safe and okay. When I was a kid in middle school, something really scary happened. I was just in 8th grade and mostly kept to myself. I didn't have many friends, so I spent a lot of time reading and studying. Yeah, I know, it sounds nerdy, but that's just what I like to do. I used to go to the school library a lot. I'd go there after school to do homework and read. One day after school, I walked to the library like usual. It was close to my house, so I didn't take the bus. I thought I'd hang out there for a while, maybe find a good book to read. I was really focused on reading a new story when suddenly the door burst open and this guy rushed in. I didn't know him, and he seemed out of place. He had long hair, a messy beard, and wore a worn-out jacket. He quickly hid behind some bookshelves, giving me a quick look before vanishing. I looked around but couldn't find the librarian. Then, unexpectedly, there was an announcement on the intercom saying the school was on lockdown. My heart started racing, even though there weren't many people nearby. Finally, I saw the librarian rushing back from an office. She explained about the lockdown and took me to a room in the library to stay safe. I told her about the mysterious guy, and she got worried. We looked around but didn't find anyone else. So we quickly went to the designated room where I was with teachers, feeling nervous. The police were called, but after a few hours they said everything was okay. They never caught the guy. My parents were scared, but life went on. The next day seemed normal again. I was in the library reading a book, but the day after that, things went wrong. I went to school early like usual, taking my regular route. It was a quieter way in, away from the busy parts. As I walked down the hall to my locker, I stopped suddenly. There he was again, the same suspicious guy with long hair and an old jacket. This time, he wasn't in the library. Instead, he came out from a storage room. I got really scared and quickly ran into an empty classroom, hiding under a desk. It was so dark and I held my breath, hoping he didn't see me. I could hear his footsteps getting closer, and my heart was beating really fast. Then, everything went quiet. I listened carefully, waiting. After a long time, I heard the door creak open and then close. I felt relieved. I hoped he had left. I waited a bit longer, then slowly came out and ran to find someone else. I told everything to my teacher, Mrs. Caldwell. It was another lockdown, another scary moment. But this time, the person disappeared without anyone knowing where he went. Life got back to normal after that scary incident, but I couldn't forget how scared and unsure I felt. I always remembered that moment of fear. Who knows what might have happened if I hadn't hidden in that classroom? It made me realize I needed to be aware of my surroundings all the time. Just when I thought everything was okay, something surprising happened. It was a few weeks later, and I was in the library, reading. Everything seemed quiet, too quiet. I felt like something wasn't right. Suddenly, the lights blinked, and the air conditioning stopped buzzing. I looked around, feeling scared. Was it just a power cut, or was there something more worrying going on? Before I could think about it too much, I heard a voice break the silence. It said,
"Don't worry."
in a deep, rough way. I got scared and quickly turned around to see where it was coming from. In the shadows stood the same mysterious man I saw earlier. His eyes shone in the dim light, giving me a shiver. "Who are you?" I asked nervously, barely able to speak. He came closer, his face showing no emotion.
"I'm just passing by, but I need your help,"
he said mysteriously. I felt confused and worried. What did he want from me? And why now? Before I could say anything, he suddenly disappeared, leaving me alone in the dark library. I was scared and didn't know what to do. Later on, I understood what he meant. He wasn't dangerous. He was sent to warn me. I needed to figure out what he was trying to tell me. Since that day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something important was going to happen. As I investigated further, I found secrets that would turn everything I knew about our town upside down. But that's a story for another day. When I was in 10 standard, in the last part of the school year, I finished all my required classes. That meant I had an extra hour in the day to use for studying. I had a whole classroom to myself, but most of the time I just played games on my phone. This free period was during my 3rd class, so I couldn't leave school early, but it was still a nice break for me. One day, I went to my study hour and actually had some homework to do. I started working on it and kept at it for about 20 minutes until there was an announcement over the school speakers. They said there was a lockdown, and everyone needed to lock their doors and go back to their classrooms if they weren't already there. At first, I wasn't sure if what was happening was real or just a practice. So I went and closed the door. My classroom was far from where people usually go, so I didn't think any teachers would come by or hear anything. I just went back to doing my homework. I have to admit, I was a little scared, but I didn't worry too much because we'd already had 2 drills before that turned out to be false alarms. I was busy with my homework when suddenly I heard someone knocking at the door. I went to see who it was and found another student outside. He looked really worried, so I let him in and we locked the door. He told me he had seen a strange older man coming towards him when he went to get a drink of water. He couldn't go back to his own classroom because he'd have to pass by the creepy guy. I turned off the lights and we both went to the back corner. We sat there in complete darkness without making a sound for a few minutes. I quietly asked the kid his name, but he wasn't there anymore. Then we heard another knock at the door. I was really scared now, but I stood up slowly and went to the door. I heard someone say police from the other side. I was surprised. When I opened the door, there were several police officers. One of them quickly pulled me out of the room. I was very confused, but then I saw them take the kid out of the room a little while later. They said he was the reason for the lockdown. It turned out he used to go to our school but had graduated 2 years ago. He had come back and threatened the school, but luckily a staff member saw him when he arrived. I got really scared when I found out I was alone in the classroom with him. As I stood there trying to understand what happened, the principal rushed over looking worried. He asked me a lot of questions about the guy I let in. I tried to answer them as best as I could, but I still felt really shaken up. Then something unexpected happened. Principal suddenly looked really scared too, and he said something quietly to himself. I asked him what was wrong, but he didn't answer. Instead, he hurried away, leaving me feeling even more confused. I went back to my classroom and tried to do my homework, but I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. Why did the principal act like that? What did he know that I didn't? As time passed, I felt really worried. Then, the lockdown ended, and we could leave our classrooms. I went straight to the principal's office to find out what was going on. When I got there, the principal was talking quietly on the phone. He seemed tense when he saw me. I asked him about why we had the lockdown, but he didn't want to tell me much. He said it was a private matter and not to worry. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Something didn't feel right, so I started asking other students and teachers what they knew. I wanted to figure out what really happened. One day, I heard a scary rumor that really scared me. It said the person who made us stay inside the school wasn't alone. He was working with others who were planning something very bad for our school. When I learned this, I got really worried. I started putting the pieces together and realized we were very close to a big disaster. It made me thankful for the lockdown rules that kept us safe, but it also made me feel scared and worried. I started thinking about what other dangers might be hiding nearby. Would we be able to stop them before something bad happened? Before I continue to the next story, if you are interested in earning from YouTube without showing your face, or without making videos by yourself using artificial intelligence, like the video that you are watching right now, then I have a special free training for you. Check the first link in the description below to get instant access. When I was in middle school, every year in late May, we had a big fun day called Field Day. We played games and had a lot of fun to celebrate the end of the school year. But one year, something unexpected happened to me. I had a concussion, which meant I couldn't join in any of the games. I felt sad about it, but there wasn't anything I could do. So instead, I brought my DS and spent the day playing games in an empty classroom. While all the other kids were having fun in the school gym, I was alone in the classroom. It felt strange because I'd never been alone in a classroom before. The teachers who weren't in the gym were having meetings, so I had the room to myself. I played on my DS for a bit, and then my English teacher, Miss Allen, suddenly closed the door without saying anything to me. I guess she was trying to make sure I couldn't hear the teachers in the next room. I went back to my game without thinking much about it. A little while later, the classroom door opened again. A man I didn't know came in. I thought he might be a parent bringing lunch for a student. But when he shut the door, I saw something scary. He had a gun tucked into his pants. I got really scared, and my heart started pounding fast. I'd never been so close to a gun before. The way he talked made me even more scared. Then he grabbed my wrist tightly, trying to pull me with him, and I felt panic taking over. But then something unexpected happened at school. There was a loud alarm that went off suddenly, signaling a lockdown. The man let go of my wrist right away and ran away down the hall, getting out through a back door. I was really surprised and scared, so I went back to my classroom. Later, my teacher, Miss Allen, came back and told us calmly that there was someone dangerous in the school, and that's why we had to stay put. I found the bravery to tell her about the man I saw, and she quickly took me to a police officer who was already there dealing with the situation. Police found out that a man was hanging around the school all morning. His actions made someone worried, so they called the police, which caused the school to lock down. Later, the man admitted that he wanted to scare kids into getting into his car so he could take them away. Thinking about what might have happened still scares me. I'm really thankful that the school's alarm went off when it did, stopping the man's bad plans. This reminds me that life can change suddenly and even small actions can have a big impact. From that day on, I understood even more how important it is for schools and communities to have good safety rules. They really do save lives. When I thought back on what happened that scary day, I suddenly realized something. The person who caused all the trouble got into the school very easily, even though there were supposed to be rules to stop that from happening. It made me really worried. How could someone with a dangerous weapon just walk into our school without anyone noticing? So, I decided to look into it more. I wanted to find out how this could have happened. Some friends and I started checking the rules the school has for safety to see if there were any weaknesses that the intruder could have used. We found something really surprising. The school's security system had a big problem. People could get in without anyone noticing. This was really serious and made us realize we had to do something quickly to keep everyone safe. We told the school leaders what we found and asked them to make things safer right away. At first, they didn't believe us much, but we kept telling them how important it was to protect everyone in the school, students and teachers. We're happy to say that our hard work was successful. School agreed that the situation was serious and promised to make things safer. They're going to add more security cameras, improve how people get in and out of the school, and practice security drills often. After the intruder came, things got a bit crazy. But it made everyone realize how important it is to stay alert and fix any security problems. This will help keep everyone safe while we learn. This story happened when I was in the 10th grade. School always began very early, and waking up was always hard for me. Sometimes, about once a month, I would oversleep and miss the bus. When that happened, I had to ask my mom to give me a ride to school while she was going to work. She didn't mind much, but I could tell she wasn't happy about it. One time, I overslept a lot. I was sleeping deeply, and by the time I woke up, the bus had already left. When I reached school, my class had already started. It was disappointing, right? Anyway, my mom dropped me off, and I went to the front door where I had to show my school ID to get in. They gave me a pass to go to my class, but I didn't like coming in late and disturbing the class atmosphere. Instead of going straight to class like I was supposed to, I had a habit. I always went to my favorite bathroom upstairs, where it was usually quiet. I'd hang out there until class ended, then sneak out during the break without anyone noticing. It might sound strange, but I used to be really shy and awkward. But one day, when I went to the bathroom, I found a janitor cleaning it. So I had to think fast and come up with a backup plan. I remembered there was a storage room nearby that hardly anyone ever went into. I slipped inside, closed the door quietly behind me, and found a hiding spot behind some boxes. I took out my phone and headphones to pass the time for the remaining 10 minutes of class. After class ended, I left the storage closet and got ready to join everyone in the busy halls. But when I stepped out, nobody was there. It was strange because usually, the halls are full of people. I even checked the time on my watch and phone a few times to make sure I hadn't gotten the time wrong. It was really confusing until I realized something. We were in lockdown. As I quietly walked towards the main hallway, I heard footsteps. I wasn't sure if it was just a practice or something serious, but I didn't want to be caught wandering around. So, I hurried back to the storage closet where I had been hiding. I managed to slip back inside without anyone seeing me, but the footsteps kept getting closer. I turned off the lights, hid behind some boxes, and tried not to make a sound. I was really scared because I could hear footsteps right outside the door. My heart was beating really fast. I hoped they wouldn't come in, but they did. I didn't move at all, trying to be as quiet as possible. Even though it was dark, I could sense someone else in the room. They were not far away, maybe about 15 feet. It felt like time was moving so slowly. I was so scared that I almost gave myself away, but I managed to stay silent. Finally, the footsteps went away, and the door closed. I waited nervously for another 15 long minutes before I heard an announcement and students coming back to the halls. I came out of my hiding spot and joined everyone else. I found my friends and asked them what was going on. They said they heard someone suspicious got caught at our school. The rest of the day was normal, and I didn't tell anyone about hiding in the storage closet. But something surprising happened later. After a few weeks, I was cleaning out my locker when I found something that shocked me. Deep in my locker, buried under old books, I found a crumpled paper. I opened it, feeling nervous, and saw messy writing on it. It said, "Come to the storage room. I know you're there." I felt scared and confused. Who wrote this? How did they know I was in the storage room? Then I remembered hearing footsteps near the closet. Could it be the same person who wrote the note? My head was filled with lots of questions and worries when I found out something unsettling. I wondered if someone was spying on me and why they would do that. I looked around the hallway, but everything seemed fine. People were talking and laughing, not noticing how anxious I felt. I nervously crumpled the note and put it in my pocket, deciding to keep it a secret. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop feeling like someone was keeping an eye on me. Since that day, every little noise in the house made me scared. I couldn't stop feeling like someone was watching me. I started paying extra attention to everything around me, always checking behind me to see if someone was there. Even though I tried really hard, I couldn't figure out who wrote the strange note or why. As time passed, I forgot about the incident, but I still felt uneasy, like something wasn't right. Even now, I often think about what could have happened if I stayed hidden in that storage room a bit longer. Would I have met the person who knew my secret? Or was it all just a mean joke meant to scare me? I might never find out, but one thing is sure, I'll always remember that day. It reminds me that sometimes our biggest fears come from unexpected places. I used to live in a quiet town in Utah. Every day, I had to drive for 35 minutes to get to school through the peaceful countryside. I didn't really like school, but since I was almost done with my last year, I thought I could manage. I wasn't a great student because I liked to do my own thing. Me and my friends often skipped classes to hang out at McDonald's nearby. Then we'd go to one of our houses and chill while our parents were at work. But my rebellious behavior got me into trouble. In January, I got put on academic probation because I had missed too many days of school without a good reason. One Thursday afternoon during lunch at school, something unexpected happened. While I was finishing my meal, there was a big mess in the cafeteria. An older student thought it would be funny to play a trick on a quiet and shy new student. He quickly pulled the chair out from under the new student, just as he was about to sit down. The poor new kid fell hard and got knocked out. After that, things got pretty chaotic. Some other students stood up for the new kid and got into a bit of a fight with the prankster. It was like watching a scene from a movie, with teachers and students rushing in to try to stop the chaos and calm everyone down. Once things settled, I felt a bit relieved to see the prankster facing the consequences of his actions. But I also worried that because he was the son of one of the teachers, he might not get in as much trouble as he should. When the school bell rang to end the day, a scary announcement came through the speakers. Principal sounded scared as he said we had to go on lockdown. I thought it might be a practice, but everyone seemed really worried. We did what we were supposed to do during a lockdown and stayed in our classroom. We could hear noises outside, like people shouting and crying near the secretary's office. It made me feel really scared, and I knew something bad was happening. Time felt really slow while we sat quietly, not saying anything. It felt like forever. We didn't know what was going to happen next. Then, all of a sudden, the screaming stopped. We all breathed a big sigh of relief, thinking everything was okay now. But we were totally wrong. Out of nowhere, a man started shouting really loudly. The lockdown started again, and we had no idea what was going on outside our classroom. Everyone felt really tense as we tried to hear what was happening. Time passed slowly, and each minute felt like forever. Then the principal's voice came over the loudspeaker, saying the lockdown was over. We felt a bit relieved, but still careful as we left where we were hiding. But when we stepped out, things were chaotic. There were police officers everywhere in the lobby, talking quickly with school staff. We students were confused, trying to figure out what happened. But we couldn't understand it all. The next day, we learned just how bad things really were. People were talking a lot, spreading rumors really quickly, and making it seem like the situation was way worse than we thought. It all started because the parents of a new student who got hurt in the cafeteria had a big grudge. They were super mad and wanted revenge for what happened to their kid. So they showed up at the school and caused a lot of chaos, demanding that something be done to make things right for their son. But their desire for payback went too far. What started as asking for someone to take responsibility turned into a scary situation. The father started showing a weapon and threatening to hurt anyone who tried to stop him. In the end, it reminded everyone how easily things can go wrong and how emotions can change suddenly. The memories of that scary day stayed with people, reminding them that danger can be close, even when everything seems calm. For me, I couldn't get rid of the uneasy feeling that stayed with me after what happened. It reminded me that even in everyday situations, unexpected things can happen. In those times, all we can do is stay hopeful and hold on to the little things that keep us feeling normal in a crazy world. Back in 2022, I just finished school and landed my first job as a teacher's helper at a nearby high school. My role was simple: assist the teacher in class with whatever they needed. One day, during a science experiment, We realized we needed some flasks from the supply closet across the building. I volunteered to fetch them. As I was in the closet, I received a text message informing me that the school was under lockdown for real, not just a practice. Knowing that if I returned to class, I might get locked out, I made the decision to stay put in the closet. I turned off the light, closed the door, and stood there in the dark. When the lockdown alarm sounded, everything went quiet. A message said there might be a dangerous person in the school, so we had to stay where we were. I felt really scared and my heart was beating fast. I heard footsteps in the hallway, then the closet door opened. It was a teacher, an older man. He asked if he could hide with me, and I said yes. He explained he was teaching a class nearby when the alarm went off. I found it strange he wasn't with his class. Then we got another message warning us not to open the doors because the dangerous person might be an older man with a beard. I looked at the guy next to me, and he matched the description perfectly. My heart raced, and I knew I had to find a way to leave. I opened the closet door and quickly ran to the nearest way out. I was too scared to look back to see if the man was following me. After a little while, we got a message saying the police had checked the school and everything was safe. Later on, I learned that the person who caused the lockdown got into the school by tricking the people at the front desk into thinking he was a parent. They never caught him, and the security cameras didn't show his face well, but they did show that he had a weapon. I think the guy in the closet with me was the same person, but it was dark, so I can't be certain. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced. But the story doesn't end there. A few days later, I was in the teacher's lounge chatting with some other teachers about what had happened. We were all still feeling upset. Then, Mrs. Johnson told us something weird she saw in the security footage. She said that after the lockdown ended and everyone left, she saw someone coming out of the supply closet on the cameras. It was the same closet I had been hiding in. But what's strange is that nobody else was in the hallway at that time. It was like the person appeared out of nowhere. I got really scared when Mrs. Johnson told me what she saw. I started wondering if the person hiding with me wasn't real. Maybe I was just so scared that I imagined them. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So, I decided to look for clues. I went back to the closet and searched around. And guess what? I found a secret door hidden behind a shelf. It was small and hard to see, but it was there. I opened it and saw a dark, narrow passage that seemed to go on forever. I found something incredible. There's a secret tunnel in the school, and it starts from the supply closet. I was so surprised. I wondered who made it and why. And I was curious about who might have been using it. I knew I had to tell someone, so I went to the principal and showed him the hidden door. He was really surprised too, and called the police right away. They came and looked at the tunnel, but they couldn't figure out who built it or why. It was all so mysterious. It made me feel really uneasy. I started to wonder what other secrets the school might have, and I worried about what might happen if we ever found out. This story happened around 5 years ago, when I was in a small middle school in central Wisconsin. Later, my family moved to New York City, but that's not crucial for this story. Back then, I was just a normal 7th grader. Our school didn't have great security, so it wouldn't be too difficult for someone to break in if they wanted to. It was the end of the school day, and I was in the bathroom when something scary happened. All of a sudden, a loud announcement came on over the speakers, telling everyone to lock their classroom doors right away. The announcement sounded serious, like it wasn't just a practice. It meant that there was someone dangerous inside the school. I never imagined I'd be stuck in a bathroom during a lockdown. I needed to get to a classroom, but the door was locked. I felt scared, but then I remembered a storage closet nearby. It wasn't perfect, but it seemed safest. I went to the closet and quietly went in, closing the door behind me. It was really dark, and I could hardly see anything. I tried to stay calm, telling myself that if I stayed hidden, I'd be okay. Then I heard a quiet scratching noise in the dark. I thought maybe someone was trying to open the closet. I held my breath, wishing they'd go away. But the scratching kept going, getting louder. Suddenly I realized it was coming from inside the closet, behind me. My heart pounded as I turned around slowly, scared of what I might see. Then I saw someone standing in the dark. I couldn't see them clearly, but I could see their eyes shining at me. It made me feel really scared. I couldn't move or talk as they came closer and closer. All of a sudden, the lights turned on, making the closet really bright. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust. When they did, I saw Jake, my best friend, right in front of me. I was so surprised. Why was he in the closet? And why was he scratching at the walls like a crazy person? Before I could even think about it, Jake spoke, barely making a sound.
"Hey, listen,"
he said, looking really nervous and glancing around.
"I know what I'm about to say. Might seem really weird, but I think I know who the person breaking in is."
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jake was known for pulling pranks, but this felt different. Still, the way he was talking made me think he was telling the truth.
"I was in the hallway when the lockdown happened.
Jake went on, sounding a bit scared.
I saw someone I know. It was Mr. Thompson, our science teacher."
When Jake mentioned Mr. Thompson's name, I suddenly felt scared. Mr. Thompson was always kind to us students, always ready to lend a hand. But if what Jake said was true, just as I was about to speak up, the loudspeaker came on again, and the principal's voice filled the room. She said quickly,
"Everyone, the lockdown is over, and the person who caused the scare has been caught. We're safe now. Please stay calm and wait for more directions."
Jake and I looked at each other, both of us still trying to understand what had just happened. Mr. Thompson, the intruder? It felt unbelievable, but we silently went back to our classroom. Our classmates were calming down, the stress of the last hour fading away. But Jake and I couldn't shake off what had happened. It taught us that sometimes the people we're close to might have hidden secrets. This happened to me when I was in my second year of high school, around April or May of 2019. I live in a town near the ocean, but I won't tell you the name of my school to keep it private. I played the big bass in our school's wind ensemble, and every morning we practiced in the band hall. One day, while we were playing a song, I heard a knock on the door. I don't think anyone else noticed because we were all busy with the music. I was standing close to the door with my big bass, along with the percussionists. One of the people playing the drums, who I knew, went and opened the door without really thinking about it. We were always told not to open it for anyone who wasn't a student. The person who came in was a man who looked to be around middle-aged and Latino. He was wearing a gray sweatshirt and shorts, and he seemed to be about 5 feet 6 inches tall. I saw that he had his hands in his sweatshirt, like he was holding something heavy. The person leading the band noticed him first and stopped directing. Everyone looked to see what was happening. The music teacher asked a man if he needed help, but the man said he was there to pick up his daughter. The teacher told him he shouldn't be there and sent him to the front office. The man said thanks and left. After he left, everyone was quiet, trying to figure out what happened. The teacher called the school security, and soon the school was on lockdown. We turned off the lights and hid in the big lockers where we keep the tubas. 2 security guards came running down the hall, following where the man went. After some time, the lockdown ended. The school didn't officially say what happened, but I heard from other students that the man had stolen something nearby and was running from the police. He had a gun in his hoodie, which made it feel really heavy. Remembering how close I was to someone armed at school still gives me chills. The band director probably wanted to keep calm, but I think he made a mistake by letting the man go further into the school. If he had bad plans, things could have ended very badly. I'm relieved I'm not in high school anymore, because it taught me how easily things can go wrong because of a small mistake. But there's still something about that day that bothers me. It's not just the fear of being near danger, but there's this feeling that something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than what we knew. A few weeks after the scary event, I was chatting with my friend who lived close to the school. He told me about something weird he saw that day. Just before the man went into the school, my friend noticed a van parked across the street. It caught his attention because it stayed there for a while, and then quickly drove away as soon as the man entered the school. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if the man wasn't alone? What if someone else was involved planning everything? It might sound crazy, but it could explain why the man seemed so sure of himself when he entered the school, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I wanted to find out more, so I started talking to other students who were at school that day. Most of them didn't see anything strange, but one person said they saw a van parked close by before everything happened. I thought this might be important, so I went to the school security office and asked if they had any video from that day. Surprisingly, they did. After watching it, I saw the van parked there before the man came into the school, but the video was too blurry to see any details clearly. I didn't know what to do when I got this information. Should I tell someone or keep it secret? It felt like a big problem, but I couldn't ignore it. I wanted to know who did it and why they picked our school. For weeks, I looked at every bit of information, trying to figure it out. I even went back to where I saw the van, hoping to find a clue. But no matter what I did, I couldn't find anything. In the end, I had to admit that I might never find out everything that happened. It could have been a random act of violence, or there might have been something scarier behind it. Either way, it taught me to be careful and listen to my gut feelings. Even though I might never know everything, I'm thankful for the lesson. It showed me how easily life can change, and that's something I won't forget. My name is Josh, and I have to tell you about this crazy thing that happened during lockdown in our school. It was a normal day. Everyone was bored waiting for the bell. I was in biology class, doodling in my notebook and not really paying attention to the teacher talking about cells. The guy next to me was trying to text secretly under the desk. Nothing new. Suddenly, there was this really loud crash, like something smashing through the window. Glass was flying everywhere, and we all dropped to the floor, really scared. At first, I thought it might be a prank or a science experiment gone wrong. But then, we heard more shots, and I realized it was serious, happening right then and there. Mr. Smith, our teacher, acted quickly. He locked the door, turned off the lights, and told us to stay quiet and low. I was shocked that this was really happening. We could hear sirens far away, and I looked at my classmates. Everyone was scared. Some were even crying. We started getting messages and whispers with updates. It turns out, a woman from the neighborhood who always caused trouble was shooting at the school. I couldn't believe it. Sure, she had been annoying before, yelling at kids and causing scenes, but shooting at us? That was really crazy. The entire school suddenly had to stay in their classrooms with the doors locked. We only knew a little about what was going on. Some classrooms got hit by bullets, and we heard that Mrs. Taylor, our math teacher, got hurt. I couldn't even understand what was happening. It felt like my brain wasn't working right. I was scared for Mrs. Taylor and for all of us. We had to stay in our classroom, not knowing what would happen next. It was really scary. We stayed together on the floor for what felt like a long time. I remember looking at the ceiling, trying to figure out what was happening. The posters about biology in the broken window made it all seem strange and unreal. I couldn't stop worrying about my family, especially my little sister. I kept wondering if they knew I was safe. Feeling helpless and not knowing what might happen next was really hard. Helicopters were flying above us, and we could hear sirens in the distance. It felt like everything was closing in on us. Finally, we heard that the lady who caused all the trouble had given up to the police. I felt relieved, but we still had to wait. The police needed to make sure the place was safe, so we stayed in that classroom feeling nervous. It's amazing how your mind can start imagining the worst when you're in a situation like that. For a really long time, it felt like forever, but finally, the police arrived at our classroom. They told us to line up with our hands on our heads and guided us outside. The halls were strangely quiet, like a ghost town. I noticed holes from bullets in the walls and glass scattered everywhere. It made me realize how close we were to something terrible happening. You know what I mean. I don't even want to think about it. Outside, everything was chaotic. Parents were there, crying and holding onto their kids tightly. I saw Mrs. Taylor being taken away in an ambulance. She looked very pale, but thankfully, she was alive. I found my mom in the crowd, and we just hugged each other for a really long time without saying anything. I could see she had been crying too, and I've never been happier to see her. After that, we went straight home. Dad was away for work. When I told him what happened, he got really upset on the phone. School got canceled for a few days because everyone was trying to understand what happened, but it was too crazy to make sense of. Later, we heard that Mrs. Taylor was going to be okay. She was going to get better. But then, there was a surprising twist. The person who shot her wasn't alone. They had help from someone unexpected. One of our classmates, Mike, surprised us all. He was always quiet and sat in the back of the class, keeping to himself. Nobody expected what happened next. Turns out he'd been planning something for a while because he felt like nobody paid attention to him. He teamed up with a troublemaker from our neighborhood, hoping it would make him stand out. But when things got serious, Mike got scared and backed out. The troublemaker went ahead with the plan alone. It shocked everyone. We didn't know how to react. So that's what happened during the lockdown at our school. It was a crazy day I'll never forget. It teaches us that people can surprise us, especially when they feel pushed too far. It was a really cold day at my high school, and it felt like even the walls were freezing. I was in the chemistry lab with some friends, working on a project, when suddenly the intercom made a loud noise. The voice on the intercom said,
Attention everyone, we're having a lockdown starting right now. Follow the lockdown rules. This is serious, not practice.
I felt scared hearing that. Our teacher, Mr. Green, quickly locked the door and covered the window with paper. We were told to stay quiet in a corner where no one could see us. Everyone was confused and whispering, but nobody knew why this was happening. Lockdowns were something we never expected in our small town. Time passed slowly, and all we knew about the world outside came from the intercom updates. We felt anxious, like the room was shrinking and fear was thick in the air. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the small window, hoping to see what was happening. Outside, there were lots of police, looking serious and hurrying around.
What's happening?
Whispered a classmate. I don't know, I whispered back, barely heard over everyone else talking. Time dragged on, and the room felt stuffy. We breathed out clouds of mist, and Mr. Green tried to keep us calm, but we could see the worry in his eyes. Suddenly, we heard yelling far away, then big noises like bangs. Everything got quiet, and everyone looked scared. What was going on? Who was making all this noise? We didn't know what was happening, and not knowing was really hard. We felt stuck in our school, not understanding what was going on. Finally, after a long time of waiting and feeling scared, we heard the intercom turn on one more time.
The lockdown is over. The police made sure the school is safe.
The voice said. Police took us out of the room. They looked tired and worried. The school was a mess. Kids were crying, teachers were trying to help them feel better, and parents were waiting nervously outside. We found out later that someone who used to work at the school was upset and came in with a weapon. It was a nightmare for everyone. After a while, things started to get back to normal. But we couldn't forget what happened. Our town wasn't as innocent anymore, and it was tough to trust people like we used to. As time went on, people started talking about what really happened that day. Some said it was on purpose. Others thought it was just a big misunderstanding. After a while, things seemed to get back to normal. But one day, everyone was surprised to find out that the person who did it wasn't alone. They had help from someone who was around all the time, but no one suspected. The news shocked everyone in our community. We couldn't believe someone we trusted would do something like that. It made us realize that danger can be hiding in unexpected places. Eventually, the truth came out, but the pain of that day stayed with us. We had to face the fact that our town wasn't as safe as we thought, but we promised to support each other and move forward, refusing to let fear control us. When I was in high school, my friends and I were getting ready to play basketball in gym class. Everything seemed normal with the shiny wooden floor, hoops, and big bleachers. But then, Our coach looked worried and kept staring out the window. I asked my friend, "What's wrong with Coach?" He said, "I don't know. Let's see." We all looked to see what Coach was watching. Outside, there was a guy walking by. He had a shotgun and was wearing all black clothes. Suddenly, a loud noise scared us while we were at school. Our coach quickly locked the doors because something serious was happening. We were told to hide, but the gym didn't have many good places to hide. Coach had to think fast to keep us safe. We couldn't go to the locker rooms because they weren't safe, so under the bleachers was our only option. Some kids were scared because it was a tight space, but then we heard another scary noise from outside. The coach didn't waste any time. He told us all to crawl under the bleachers and cover ourselves with something so the person outside couldn't see us. It was yucky putting on sweaty gym clothes, but it was better than being in danger. Once, we heard loud bangs on the doors. Someone was trying to get in. We all got very scared and held our breath. Finally, the doors broke open with a big bang, and we heard a loud noise like a big gun. It made us even more scared. A man came in with the gun, shouting a name, Jessica. I knew a girl named Jessica in our class, and she looked really scared. It turned out the man was her dad, and he was saying scary things about taking her home. Jessica was shaking a lot. Her dad was drunk and walking around unsteadily, pointing the gun at everyone. He kept saying he missed her and wouldn't let anyone stop him from taking her. It was really scary. Just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, the other doors burst open and the police rushed in. There were loud noises like more guns. Jessica's dad got hit in the arm. He tried to shoot back, but he was too drunk to aim properly. The police got him down and took him away. After that really crazy day, Jessica's dad went to jail because he tried to hurt people. I still can't believe he brought a big gun to our school. It's really wrong to think about what he did to end up like that. But here's something surprising. A few days after the school was locked down, rumors started going around. Some kids said they saw Jessica's dad talking to a strange lady outside the school before he came in with the big gun. They said she was dressed all in black, just like him, and they were arguing. Nobody knew who she was or why they were arguing. Some people thought maybe she was somehow involved, but others thought it was just a strange coincidence. But it definitely made the whole situation even stranger. The police tried to find this mysterious lady, but they couldn't find any sign of her. It was like she vanished into thin air. Jessica never talked about it, and neither did her dad. To this day, nobody knows who she was or why she was there that day. It's like a big puzzle that nobody can solve, but it really makes you think about what might have happened back then. As time went on, things started to feel normal again at school. Jessica was still a bit scared, but she was feeling better. We all tried to forget about the lockdown and focus on our schoolwork and basketball games. But then one day, something weird happened. It was during lunch break, and me and my friends were hanging out outside. Suddenly, we heard screaming coming from inside the school. We rushed in to see what was going on. When we got closer, we saw Jessica running down the hallway, crying a lot. She looked super scared, like she had seen something really scary. We tried to ask her what was wrong, but she just kept running away, like she was being chased by something scary. We tried really hard to keep up with Jessica, but she was super speedy. She zipped around a corner, and when we got there, poof, she was gone. We looked all over the school, but she was nowhere to be found. We asked the teachers if they'd seen her, but they hadn't. It was like she just vanished, like that mysterious lady we heard about before. We were all super scared, wondering what happened to Jessica. Some kids thought maybe her dad, who was in jail, came after her. Others said maybe she saw something really scary. But whatever we thought, we knew one thing: Jessica was in trouble, and we had to find her before it got worse. We searched high and low, asking everyone if they saw her. But nobody had. It was like she disappeared completely. After we almost gave up, we heard a small voice from the basement of the school. We hurried down and found Jessica scared and hiding. We asked her what happened, but she was too scared to talk. She just cried and trembled. We tried to make her feel better, but she couldn't stop crying. Finally, we calmed her down enough to tell us what happened. She said she was walking in the hallway when she saw the scary lady from earlier at the end of it. The lady was looking at her with cold, scary eyes. Jessica tried to run, but the lady caught her and whispered something in her ear. She couldn't remember what it was, but it scared her a lot. We were really confused about what was happening. There was this lady we didn't know who seemed interested in Jessica. She just popped up out of nowhere after a long time. We felt like we needed to make sure Jessica was okay and figure out why this lady was hanging around. So, we came up with a plan to keep Jessica safe and finally get to the bottom of who this mysterious lady was. We all stuck close to Jessica, like we were super glued together. We walked her to school and back, and we made sure she was never alone. We even took turns keeping watch to make sure that lady didn't come back unexpectedly. Days passed, and then weeks went by. More time flew, turning into months, but the mysterious woman still didn't show up. It felt like she vanished, leaving us puzzled and scared. We searched and waited, but she remained a mystery. Who was she? What did she want with Jessica? These questions haunted us, making us uneasy. In the end, we never figured it out. The mysterious woman's identity stayed hidden, leaving us with memories that gave us chills. It became one of the biggest riddles of our high school days. When I was in high school, there was a boy named Tyler. Tyler wasn't very popular because he acted tough, but most of us found him annoying. Sometimes, our school had practice drills where we had to hide in our classrooms in case something bad happened. It was scary because it made us realize that school might not always be safe. One day, during one of these drills, the alarm rang, and our teacher, Mrs. Johnson, locked the door. We all huddled together in a corner, trying to stay quiet, but Tyler didn't do what he was supposed to. Instead, he stayed in the middle of the room. Mrs. Johnson told him to sit down, but he didn't listen. Instead, he took something out of his pocket that looked like a gun. My heart started pounding, and my hands got sweaty. Tyler pointed the gun at Mrs. Johnson and told her to turn around. She did what he said. Then he pointed it at me. I felt like my legs were shaking as I stood up and faced the wall. One by one, he made everyone in the class do the same thing with our hands on our heads. When the alarm rang, Tyler talked about being kind to quiet kids. He said scary things like, "You'll see what happens if you bother us." It made me feel very scared. Then, the alarm stopped, and things seemed normal again. But we were still scared. Usually, after an alarm, the principal checks on us. But this time, he didn't know what was happening at first. I heard his footsteps as he figured it out. Just when we thought it was over, the alarm started again. The announcement said we were in a full lockdown, not just a practice. My classmates got scared and some cried. I felt like I couldn't breathe. During the second lockdown, Tyler didn't say much. He paced behind us while we were very scared. Then, he put something on the desk and we all got scared. I thought he might have hurt someone, but luckily, he didn't. We heard the police coming outside. Tyler told Mrs. Johnson to move slowly towards him. Then, he made us all face him. I saw a gun aimed at Mrs. Johnson's head and felt really sick. Suddenly, Tyler put the gun on Mrs. Johnson's desk. She hesitated but then grabbed it. Tyler looked happy, like he'd won something. We didn't know if it was safe to move. Mrs. Johnson unlocked the door. The police came in fast. She kicked the gun into the hallway and said Tyler didn't have it anymore. The police put handcuffs on Mrs. Johnson just to be sure. Then they came to us. We all pointed at Tyler. They took him away right then. He never came back to school after that. I still don't know why Tyler did that, but I'm glad nobody got hurt. Later, we found out the gun wasn't real, but it was still the scariest day ever. As time went by, school started to feel normal again. We all wanted to forget what happened, but it was tough. I couldn't get Tyler's scary face out of my head, and I always felt scared. Then one day, something weird happened in English class. Our teacher, Mrs. Thompson, suddenly stopped talking and looked confused. I asked her if something was wrong, but she just shook her head and kept teaching. But I could tell something wasn't right. Later, I heard some kids talking in the hallway. They said they saw Tyler. At first, I didn't believe them. How could Tyler be back? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Maybe Tyler escaped from the police somehow. Maybe he wanted to get revenge. I wanted to find out where Tyler went. I asked people if they saw him too, but most of them said they didn't know anything. Some people said it might not be true. But I still felt like something wasn't right. That night, I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about Tyler. I imagined him hiding in the dark, ready to do something bad. I tried really hard to stop thinking about it, but I couldn't. The next day at school, I couldn't pay attention to my lessons. I was too busy looking around, worried that Tyler might be there. Every little noise made me jump. During lunch, I saw Tyler. He was at the end of the hallway, looking at us with a scary smile. I got really scared and my heart raced. I ran to get a teacher, but when I came back with them, Tyler was gone. Nobody believed me when I told them what happened. They said I was just imagining things. I saw something scary. Tyler, who was gone before, came back, and he was really mad. I had to tell everyone before something bad happened. I spent all day telling people Tyler was back. Some believed me, but most thought I was silly and didn't listen. That night, I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking Tyler would come to hurt me. I felt like I was losing my mind. The next morning, I heard sirens outside my house. I looked out and saw police cars. I knew something bad had happened. I hurried to school to find out. When I got there, I saw lots of people at the entrance. I pushed through and saw Tyler on the ground, surrounded by police. He had been hurt. I was so surprised. Tyler was gone forever. I felt a mix of two strong feelings, relief and sadness. Part of me was happy he was gone, but another part felt sorry for him. As time went by, we learned the truth. Tyler had planned something really big. He sneaked into the school at night and put bombs everywhere. But before he could set them off, the police found him. They tried to arrest him, but he took out a gun and started shooting. The police had to shoot him to protect themselves. It was a big shock. None of us knew how dangerous Tyler was. It made me understand that things aren't always what they seem. Tyler's scary time was finally over, but I'll always remember that day. It reminds me that danger can be anywhere, even when we don't expect it. And sometimes, the scariest people are the ones we never suspect.